Hello everyone, welcome to my presentation today. My name is Yuandong. I'm very glad to present our paper, Void Growing, a novel scan-to-BIM method for Manhattan world buildings from point cloud. There are mainly 4 parts in my presentation today: background, state-of-the-art, void growing method, and conclusion. First of all, I want to talk about the background of our paper. For those who are not familiar with Scan-to-BIM or Scan versus BIM technique, I want to discuss 2 questions first. Why do we need Scan-to-BIM? What can this technique be used for? In general, the Scan-to-BIM is used to update the current status of facilities, such as buildings, bridges, industrial facilities, tunnels, etc. A regular updated model is quite useful in many aspects. For example, in asset condition monitoring, like in image A, it can be used to detect crack and spalling in bridges. Furthermore, it can also be used to make decisions in construction. Another use case is shown in image B. They use scan versus BIM technique to monitor the construction progress and can get very promising results. However, here comes the question. Although BIM models are quite useful in many aspects, many facilities do not have any BIM models. One reason is that when the facilities were constructed, there were no concepts of digital models or BIM models at all. It is straightforward to think we could just create BIM model if there isn't any. However, here comes another problem. It is not easy to create BIM models right now. Currently, this process requires much human effort. For example, for one bridge, it takes weeks for one modeler to model it. For some large complex industrial facilities, it takes more than 5,000 labor hours to model them. Therefore, we really need to automate the scan-to-BIM process to reduce the labor cost here. Many research has already been done here. In the field of buildings construction from point cloud, most methods start with detecting planes first. But there is a problem here. When detecting planes first, it is very hard to distinguish large furniture surface, like the surface of a bookshelf or cupboard, from the structure element surfaces, like the surface of walls. Based on that, we propose a method to solve this problem in another way. Instead of detecting planes first, we detect void room spaces first, and then detect the elements based on the detected void room spaces. Next, I want to introduce our proposed void growing method. After the input point cloud of one single room and the growing process for one single room here, to show how the void growing algorithm works roughly. And in the second image, we illustrate the overall pipeline of our approach. Our method starts with generating seeds for growing. Image A is the input point cloud. We remove the seedings for better visualization. Next step, we project all points into 2D XY plane. Then we filter the points in low density area out. The remaining points are located where point density is relatively high. High density areas represent a large number of points at this position in Z direction. They usually occur in the place where vertical surfaces are present, like the vertical surfaces of walls, furniture, etc. Our next step is to use reconstruct to extract lines in 2D plane. As we use the Manhattan world assumption, we remove the lines that are not parallel or perpendicular to x or y coordinates. And if a set of parallel lines are near to each other, we only select one line from them. Because these lines with small distances between them cannot be two boundaries of one rule. At last, we extend the remaining lines to get polygons and select the geometric center of polygons as our seeds for next step. In this step, we only need to select all these seed points roughly. The next step in the void growing approach is to growing void space starting from the seed points. This part is the core of our approach. First step here is to do the voxelization of point cloud. This means we separate the whole 3D space into many voxel grids. The voxels can then be divided into two categories, void voxel and non-void voxel. We grow our void space from seed in a cuboid way. This means the void space is grown from one void seed in 6 directions, top, bottom, left, right, and front, back. Similar to the region growing approach, our approach checks the neighbors of the seed whether they belong to the volume space at each step. During the growing, we check the patterns on the surface as stocking conditions, as shown in Figure B. Red voxels denote non-void voxels, as well as blue voxels denote the void voxels. If there is a relatively large number of non-void voxels, the algorithm would stop growing in this direction. Whether it stops growing in this direction does not influence the growing of other directions. That means the growing in all the 6 directions are independent. If it stops growing in one direction and continues growing in other directions, the frontier of the stopped condition is also enlarged. This means in further step, if the stopping condition is not fulfilled anymore, it can continue growing in this direction again. You can see from this GIF, during the growing process, sometimes it stops growing in one or two directions, but continue growing in another direction. When it stops growing in all 6 directions, we check the patterns on the stopped frontier again. We have some predefined frontier like this: a door opening pattern, a window opening pattern, and a furniture pattern. We would stop growing when we found some door or window opening pattern at the frontier. However, a furniture pattern would cause a problem. We saw this in this way as shown in image D. When we found some large non-void voxel pattern in one direction, we would start the furniture pattern and then continue growing in this direction. In all the further steps, we project the furniture pattern we start in this direction and then use the projected pattern to check whether we stop growing in this direction. Here, you can see the result of void volume. On the left-hand side is the input point cloud, and on the right-hand side is the detected void spaces. You can see from the image here, different ceiling heights can be represented well, and Some rooms with complex room structures, like L-shaped rooms, can also be reconstructed well. However, the slanted ceilings cannot be reconstructed because our drawing is in a cuboid way. The last step in our pipeline is to extract the elements we want to reconstruct from the cuboids generated from the last step. We use different strategies for different kinds of structure elements. For ceilings, floors, and outer walls, we usually only collect data inside the room, so the other side cannot be captured. For those elements, we use the surface where the void volume stops growing as the inner surface of these elements. Then we can just set some default thickness value to these elements. In contrast, both sides of the inner walls can be scanned when we collecting data inside a building. That means we grow void volumes with inside two adjacent rooms. The space between two void cuboids is considered as the inner wall, as shown in the figure on the left-hand side. The thickness of the inner wall is the distance between these two surfaces. On the right-hand side, you can see the final result of our approach and the manually created BIM model after removing the ceilings for better visualization here. In summary, our new proposed void growing approach is a novel approach which detects the void room space in a building first instead of detecting planes first. It can reconstruct rooms with complex room structure like L-shaped rooms. Furthermore, it can reconstruct rooms with different ceiling heights. However, no slanted ceilings can be detected. But this is one of our further research topic. At last, I want to mention, we merged some of the steps in the void growing method to the new proposed method named Point Weaver, and by using Point Weaver, we won the second prize in 3D building model reconstruction challenge in the CVPR computer vision in the built environment workshop. For more information, you can use the following link. The work presented in this paper is funded by the Institute for Advanced Study at the Technical University of Munich. The dataset we used in this paper is collected on the main campus of the Technical University of Munich with the help of Navis. Thank you so much for your attention, and I'm looking forward to your questions. Thank you.